This episode of Crosscut Talks is supported by Alaska Airlines.
Hey, welcome to Crosscut Talks. I'm Mark Baumgarten, the managing editor at Crosscut, and this week we're talking about food, and in particular, what happened to fine dining during the height of the pandemic. And for this conversation, we're bringing in another podcast. As regular listeners to this podcast know, a lot of the conversations we've been featuring over the last 6 months have been from the Crosscut Festival, which was held this past May. For the festival, we partner with a bunch of podcasts, most of which are pretty serious affairs. But we do recognize that life is more than our biggest problems. That's why we brought in Rachel Bell, the host of Your Last Meal, to lead this conversation about food. And yeah, this talk is in large part about the problems presented by the pandemic and one restaurant's creative solutions to those problems. But it's also just delightful. And I figured, with all the seriousness we serve up, you really do deserve a little delight. This conversation is sponsored by Northwest Harvest, which would like to share the following message. Northwest Harvest is working to achieve food security for all Washingtonians by breaking down barriers that prevent people from accessing good food and addressing the root causes of poverty and hunger. You can join the fight for food justice by supporting Northwest Harvest at www.northwestharvest.org. It's also worth noting that this is the last conversation from the festival that we'll be sharing here. The team at Crosscut is busy lining up the slate of guests for the next Crosscut Festival, which will be taking place next spring. Watch this space for more on that in the near future. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you have any feedback, please send it to talks@crosscut.com. Okay, on with the show.
It's me. It's Rachel Bell, and this is the very first live edition of Your Last Meal, which I always imagine there would be thunderous applause, but since this is virtual, I'm going to announce this, and then we're going to just have awkward silence like this for just a minute. Thanks so much to Crosscut Festival for having us. And when I say us, I guess I mean me, but it makes me sound more important to say us. Let me just explain the show a little bit, because I know there are people who've never heard it or people who don't live in the area. So on each episode of Your Last Meal, I interview a celebrity about their last meal. So past guests include John Waters and Greta Gerwig, Mayim Bialik, Ben and Jerry, Neil deGrasse Tyson. And then I dig into the science, the culture, and the history of that dish that they choose with experts from around the world. So today's guests are the third generation owners of Canlis, a James Beard Award winning fine dining institution in Seattle that opened in 1950. It was more recently than 1950 described by the New York Times as Seattle's fanciest, finest restaurant. Introducing brothers Mark and Brian Canlis. And then later in the show, like I mentioned, we will dig into one of their meals. So I will welcome Seattle cookbook author and, if I may call her this, dumpling queen, Hsiao-Ching to the show. So she's going to be with us later. And I just want to remind everybody who's watching that we're going to do a Q&A at the end. So at any time when you have a burning question, just write it in the chat. Somebody's keeping track of that. And we will get to you at the very end. So hi, Mark. Hi, Brian. Thanks for being with us.
Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Thank you.
We're glad to be here.
We gave thunderous applause. We just want you to, I don't think we were on,
we were like
but
cheering.
We were like
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is so weird to, do a performance and then just have complete silence. It's like very nerve-wracking. So I just want to give a little bit more background for people. For what you've been doing for the past 16 months since the pandemic started. So the dining room at Canlis has been closed for 16 months, but you've gotten attention around the country and around the world, actually, for finding really, really inventive ways to get your food to people. And so a couple months ago, I got an email from a listener who said, can you stop using the word pivot? I'm so tired of people using the word pivot to describe things changing during the pandemic. So I'm going to say some of the things you've done over the past 16 months. I looked this up in the thesaurus: to rotate, turn, revolve, spin, swivel, twirl, whirl, wheel and
Twirl.
oscillate.
Twirl and whirl.
There's been a lot of twirling and whirling.
There's a lot of that. Thank you for not using the P word.
Yeah, we're not saying it. Well, actually, I'll let you do it. So tell me some of the things you've done. There's like a long list of different things you've done with your restaurant that's made it really accessible to people who, maybe didn't own a tie and never went to Canlis before.
I think we can do them in order. Do you want to hear them in order?
Yeah.
Okay. So burger, drive-in burger. I don't even know what you call that thing. The drive-through.
Burger drive-through.
Burger drive-through.
Followed by an outdoor bagel shed, bagel restaurant.
Followed by a delivery, home delivery
service. Followed by, we did a piano live stream show for everyone home to be able to watch our piano players live.
Hosted a bingo show, which was kind of fun. And
then we did bottle service and like alcohol and wine pairing service delivered to your home.
We did CSA kits for farmers and that kind of thing.
We opened a general store for like selling merch to raise money for nonprofits.
And we did a movie theater, a drive-in movie theater in the parking lot.
And then we did a crab shack, which was an entire restaurant we built just for COVID. It was this outdoor restaurant where you just ate tons of crab.
We opened something called Canlis Community College. A little mysterious and vague.
That's hard to explain. That whole
didn't make any sense.
That was
worked.
It actually was probably our most successful thing we did.
And then we did yurts.
We did a yurt village, which was this outdoor restaurant made of yurts.
Yurt Village 1.
And then we did Camp Canlis, which was we did a treehouse restaurant. We have a canteen barbecue restaurant.
Yurt
and then
Village
we have
2.
A second yurt village. Tomorrow we do kind of our last thing, which is
care packages.
Mondays.
Yeah.
We launch care packages where you can send care packages all over.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's 18. I think there are 18 ideas in there unless we forgot a couple, but it's been whirly. It's been twirly and whirly.
It's been oscillating. It's been spinny. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that you are the third generation to be running this restaurant. Your grandfather started it, and then your parents took over, and then you took over. So I've always been intrigued by any family business in general, because I always wonder, did you want to do it, or did you have to do it? Did you feel pressure to do it? So I guess you can answer that question, but also, where were you in your lives? What were you doing when your parents decided to retire? And was it a choice to take over?
It was absolutely a choice.
Well, they wanted me to do it. I think that's fair to say. No one really thought. I mean, it's hard to
No. And then Mark couldn't do it, and then he asked me to come help him.
Actually, there's sort of some truth in that.
We
didn't think we were going to do this.
Our parents really held it with an open hand. They were like, "Hey, it's if you ever want this business, you're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to earn your way in, but it's not going to be handed to you. And also, if you don't want it, that's fine. We'll sell it and make some money and retire." So we had the freedom to choose or not choose. Both of us were in the Air Force.
I really think they kind of pushed us out of it. But I think that looking back, now that we're parents, you sort of see what mom and dad were doing, and you're like,
it was a total Jedi mind trick.
It was the Jedi. We might have been Jedi mind tricked into coming back to the restaurant.
Because we left. We were far. You were in Florida, and I was living in Alaska. We were both in the military.
I go in different directions from restaurants, but here we are. Yeah, we ended up doing it. I actually came back first, and it was a really hard go. Like, it was really hard to take over from mom and dad, and just what was going on. And at some point, dad made a recommendation, like, you should go get your brother. That would like fix the whole thing.
Basically,
and it kind of did. We don't tell a story that way. It might end up.
No, but generational transfer. There's a reason a lot of businesses don't make it. It's hard, and
they don't have you.
It takes a lot of work.
Not
everyone has a little brother.
Not everyone has
to
me.
Like fly in and save the day.
So you guys have so much energy, and it makes sense that you came up with all of these creative ideas that you've done over the past 16 months, which is super unique. So I want you to tell a story I've heard before, but I love, and I want you to share it with people to kind of show that your family has this kind of creative energy. Tomorrow's Mother's Day. Your mom is a little prankster. Talk about the greatest prank that Mama Canlis ever pulled on her children.
Seriously, can we go there? Are you ready emotionally?
Yeah. No, I'm ready.
This with your
I just think like what I mean. There were some long nights when our dad had to work at the restaurant. She was home alone with us, and I think she just had to get real creative to entertain herself.
So we're teenagers, right? Like young teenagers. I
feel like I was like 11, which makes you 13 or 14.
But emotionally like 18, because I was like a little bit ahead.
So
we don't have
sure.
now. So anyway, so Brian's, so we're, I don't know. And the story begins when we're around the family table, all eating lasagna.
No, it's like a chicken,
like
a
chicken
Mexican
casserole or some kind of like.
Yeah.
And mom, she just starts giggling, just sort of like restrained, hushed, sort
like
of,
subtle.
oh, pardon me. I'm still dealing with something funny from earlier in the day. Kind of, but she can't get it out of her mind.
She keeps giggling.
And the giggling just starts to sort of like bubble forth as a major thing that the table's thinking to talk about.
And we're like, why is mom laughing?
Mom, what's going
Mom,
on?
come on. What's the joke?
No. Like, it's nothing. I can't, but anyway, that kind of thing, right? This is my mom. She's like 30 minutes into pulling this off. When finally we get it out of her.
Yeah.
She's like, well, do any of you have to go to the bathroom?
Really? She gets it out of us.
Because I found this X-Lax in the cupboard, and I've always wondered if it worked, and so I just put it in the casserole.
Yeah, I poisoned the casserole with a diuretic.
She's like, it cracked me up because apparently X-Lax is fakes. It must be like fake news or something because we didn't have that word back then. But it's not working, right? Okay, so naturally, what happens? One by one, we all excuse ourselves.
We all like run to the bathroom and have to go to the bathroom.
Actually go to the bathroom.
Uncontrollably.
It wasn't like we just sat there and wondered. It was like, no, we need to go.
Yeah, I think Matt went first. We have an older brother. He booked it.
So, so this only increases the giggling a little bit, right? Like you kind of see where this is going because by the time we've all sort of returned to the table and she's after this is like funny to her.
After we've been poisoned. And
we're like, what's so funny? And she's like, well, I was joking about the X-Lax. I made that up. And we're
like, who does it? We're young children.
Like, wow. Also,
no, I definitely went.
And I don't think I'm a dinner time goer.
No, I'm more of a morning guy.
You get into those rhythms. And you're like, dinner time is not my time. But it was back then.
Yeah. No, I'm still in therapy.
We talk about it. Yeah, we all talk about it.
Talk about my mom. Actually, that's true.
You don't talk about X-Lax, though, do you?
No, we do. Talk about my mom, though.
Have you ever used X-Lax?
No, I haven't. But my mom was the Metamucil lady, if I may, tell her secrets the day before Mother's Day.
Powerful effect. Okay. Yeah. So to all the mothers, maybe tomorrow we should actually do like a.
We should poison her.
We should. Fake you don't poison her. It's fine.
Sorry, we should flip a diuretic into her casserole.
That was the Canlis family dinner table growing up.
Diuretic in the casserole sounds like a punk band you would have been in high school.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were
just like an internet handle. We've never done it at the restaurant, by the way. That tradition.
Yeah, that's good. Everybody stand down. It's never been done at the restaurant. So your grandparents owned this, your parents owned it, you own this. So you grew up, in this fine dining atmosphere at work, but you didn't eat that way at home. You told me that, you ate pizza and macaroni and cheese and cereal, kind of like a classic American 1980s white person childhood food. And so that brings me to this question. Brian, you have a secret guilty pleasure that nobody except your wife knows about, but you've decided to tell the world. So what is the food that you still feel a little embarrassed about?
My mom used to always shop at Costco, and one of the things that she would get at Costco were these 5-pound bags of shredded cheddar cheese.
Like with two kinds of cheese in it, like the white and
and it was in the freezer. And I love cheese. And so what I would do is I would sneak into the freezer and I would scoop it. You have to scrape it with like a fork to get and then you'd fill a little ramekin or a little kid cup, a plastic 3-inch cup packed with cheese, put it in the microwave for about 32 seconds, and it comes out, and then you just eat pure melted cheese with the fork. And what's funny that you're asking this is this morning my kids are watching The Sound of Music, and my wife was asleep because she didn't sleep all last night because she's 7 months pregnant with our 4th kid. And I totally did it. I went
something from his past.
No, but we have fresh cheese. Practice. And this morning I ate a cup of melted cheese.
You did. You just forked.
No, it's a perfect food. It's perfectly seasoned. The texture is. People love melted cheese. They put it on nachos. They put it on pizza. But what if you just take the nacho and the pizza away?
Those people are just hiding behind the fact they want.
It's an excuse to get the melted cheese into your body.
Would you invite them
eat
to
the
go
melted cheese?
You would
straight up.
There you go.
But the only weird part about it.
I was gonna say, I was married about 2 years. My wife caught me doing it, in the kitchen, eating melted cheese with a fork, and she was absolutely horrified at how disgusting that was.
There are worse things to get caught
Yeah.
doing.
I think the only weird part is that you use a fork. Why would you not use a spoon? Doesn't it just drip through the tines?
With the spoon, it'll stick, and you have to like
No,
do that lip thing to get it off the spoon.
Yeah, the fork really is better. You'll see. I've used both. I've tried it.
You'll see.
A fork is a more enjoyable experience.
All right. So you guys just hired a new executive chef, and this was big news. It was in the New York Times. The Gray Lady even covered it. And it made news because you're one of the country's finest restaurants, but also because it was the first female executive chef you've hired. And I was really impressed by this. Only the 7th executive chef that the restaurant has had in 70 years. So people really, really stick around. But I was reading an article about it in Seattle Metropolitan Magazine, and you have a very unique interviewing process that reminded me of these things you hear about in tech companies that I've never experienced before. So can you talk about some of the more unique things that you have your candidates do when they've applied for a job at Canlis?
We did branch out into a new interviewing process. COVID's been an unusual time, but we couldn't kind of do what we wanted to do. We like to get to know the person, like the whole person, and try to understand what's really going on there. And typically that's a lot of time spent together, which is hard to do in the pandemic. So
yeah, typically we'd say like, come have dinner with me and my kids, or let's
play games.
Let's play a game of charades,
or
or
laser tag, or let's bring you in for a poker night.
Yeah, we think being a chef is like cooking and making great food is low on the list of what makes you a great chef. You have to be able to cook great food.
I wouldn't say it's low on the list. I would say it's the first step. Like, it's an assumption. Of course you're an amazing cook.
Yeah, it's
like, of course you can do great things with food.
Yeah, if you're going to be a football player, of course you can throw the ball.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that you know the rules to football. Like that test is sort of the first barrier to entry. But so we did this thing. We just said, hey, could you write a little article, like say your Seattle Met or say your Seattle Times? Like, you could just give us the headline, the byline, and a couple of paragraphs about what the story is about you coming to the restaurant. And then we said, could you just make a video, like 60 seconds, of you wholeheartedly doing something, like pouring yourself into a task that you're clearly not very good at, like that you're terrible at. I just want to see you go for it.
Because we believe great leaders, which is what kitchens need in this country, not great egos, like are comfortable being seen. They're comfortable showing others when they're not good at something. Mm-hmm. They're comfortable being vulnerable. And so we had a lot of chefs send their videos of them doing things that they were good at because they couldn't stand to be seen as not being great.
So many people failed at this. It's 60 seconds. It's like, come on, like we all have something that we just suck at, and then we couldn't do it. And it just tells you a lot about a person. I think the ability to let yourself be known or let yourself be seen is something that we lack in leadership across the board, not just in kitchens.
And so Aisha, who we hired as our chef, she's very serious, and she's super professional, and she's so dialed in and so talented. And we knew this from like talking to her, and her resume is like insane. And she sends this video. We get her video. We're like really nervous to get her video because we really liked her.
Yeah, we were already kind of sold.
And she starts like really serious looking at the camera, and she's like, okay, I think I'm just gonna do this. And she turns on some music, and she starts to dance.
It's like a TikTok video or something?
Yeah, and she's so bad at
this is not her forte.
But she dances hard and with her whole heart.
She's like, I'm going to learn this dance like the kids do. I'm going to do it for you.
It was like the Dougie or something.
And we're like cringing, like nobody wants to.
And she's cringing, but she doesn't give up.
Yeah.
And she keeps going. And she was like, I'm not going to stop for 60 seconds. And we were like, there's a leader we want to follow.
Yeah, like fully. I was like, I wish I could do that video. I would be scared to turn the camera on and start dancing.
And even right now, we're actually on the hunt for our new wine director. Our wine director is leaving after 19 or 20 years. He's an amazing guy. And we've done the same thing where we're currently just yesterday, we got 2 more videos.
Watching some fun videos.
Of people setting their video in of doing something they're bad at. It's an awesome, I think for a leadership position, it's an awesome thing to have people do.
Like a lot of people can get into it. Yeah.
I think that's a great way to go about it, because this reminds me, I applied for a job years ago actually to be a food tour guide, and I didn't get the job. And I asked her afterwards, would you mind telling me why I didn't get the job? And during the interview, she asked that question that people always ask, which is, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And of course, I have that canned weakness, the one that's not really a weakness. It's like, well, I just work too hard and I just burn myself out, like the fake, the fake reason. And so she said, well, what's another weakness? And I couldn't think of one because I didn't want to tell her, well, I just kind of like go on Facebook for hours and don't get any of my work done. So I said, I'll get back to you. Let me think about it. And she never came back around. So after I didn't get the job, I asked her why I didn't get it. And she said, the fact that you couldn't reveal your weaknesses made it seem like you have an ego. And I was like, what? But nobody answers that question sincerely. So I feel like you asking that question in the form of letting someone be silly and make a video allows somebody to actually, you don't have to tell people your real weaknesses. You can just show what you're bad at. That has nothing to do with your job.
Just the willingness to be seen for your own humanity.
And it takes both too, right? Like the company has to care enough to do that, and then you have to be willing to be seen in that way. And it's only then that you're actually establishing a real relationship. If all we care about is her strengths, we care about one slice of her. And the idea is that you're actually caring for your people. So their actual selves, their actual authentic selves. And if you're not entering into that kind of relationship at work, like what a sad and tragic sort of state that is, right? Mm-hmm. Hopefully we get to be our complete selves, even while we're working, not in spite of work. So anyway, that's what we're trying to get to in the interview process is who will you become while you're working here because you're working here. And so.
Right. Okay, one more quick question before we get to your last meals. I was looking at the original 1950 menu from the year that Canlis opened. And by the way, lobster on the appetizer menu for $1.50, which was amazing. And a baked potato for 50 cents. There wasn't much difference in the price between a potato and lobster. But the one thing that's on that menu is the Canlis salad that you're famous for and is still on the menu today. 3-part question. Number 1, is that the only thing that's around still that's from the original menu? Number 2, I guess it's a 2-part question. Tell everybody what the Canlis salad is.
It is the only original menu item that's still here. We give our executive chef freedom to create
complete autonomy.
The entire menu except for that one dish, which is a special dish. I mean,
basically because we're all addicted to it. Like you can say it out loud.
Well,
it's okay to like verbalize.
So delicious. My own mother craved. My mom craved that salad when she was pregnant, which means I'm genetically made up of that salad.
You are.
All she ate.
Yeah.
But it's
you're basically the human embodiment.
And I am the human Canlis salad.
Romaine,
bacon, mint, oregano, lemon,
olive oil and lemon.
Yeah.
Salt
and pepper.
It's just a top salad.
Green onion.
Ostensibly, it has no place on a fine dining menu, but we think a little differently about fine dining in the sense that it's really just the most considered way to serve you. And there's so many people in this town for whom that recipe just connects with. Like they remember it growing up as a kid, or they've been eating it their entire lives. And so maybe the world's greatest dish is the world's greatest dish, but maybe that salad actually connects with you or serves you even in a better way. And so we keep it on there. We keep it on there because it's a part of who we are and where we come from. And it's one of those pieces of our past that it's one of those shoulders that we get to stand on. And I think it's a way that we can keep serving. So that's the Canlis salad. It's not going anywhere.
It's changed a little. Now we make our own bacon, or now we use like finer ingredients, but for the most part, it's the exact same.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, we better get moving along. You guys are so fun to chat with. We're running out of time. Okay, big question. What would your last meal be? Mark, you go first.
Okay. Well, I was debating. I was either like SpaghettiOs out of the can, which is
cold.
I used to love to do all the time. And then I thought, no, I'm going to step it up. Here's my favorite thing. It would just be caprese. Like tomato, mozzarella, basil, sherry vinegar, not balsamic. I think I could eat that forever. I would a platter of it the size of this table, and that's a lot. I would just do it. That'd be my thing. What would you do? What's your last meal?
Hold on, just caprese? That's not a meal. That's a dish.
It is a meal in and of itself. It is complete. It is whole. It is
like
holy.
Any like more specifics? Like you have a sort of like a certain tomato or a
I don't know how
certain
much we want to go
mozzarella?
into it. No, yeah, but that'd be very strange. I'm
Just-
very picky.
is
about
it like an
tomatoes.
Olive
I'm very
Garden
picky about-
situation?
No, it is not Olive Garden. It's my caprese. I make. Can I just say this? My wife's Italian, a part-time. I think I make a very good caprese. It is my most celebrated and special thing I eat all year long.
You've
We
never
make caprese.
never made me caprese in your life.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
You're saying you're the
not-
best caprese maker in the world. You've never shared talent.
Say I'm the best caprese maker in the world. I don't think I've ever had caprese. I like it more than anything.
But you've traveled around the world. You've been to Italy. Like
I've eaten it everywhere around the world.
Ed, yours is best.
It's very good caprese. Yeah. It might be. I didn't say it was the best. I just said it's the one I want.
It's a meal. Is there wine
I don't
with
want to
it?
eat your
Are you gonna
caprese
have like?
from my last
Are you gonna have any
meal.
wine?
Yeah, I would have wine.
What would you
wine.
have? What's your pairing?
My pairing. Let's see. What would I have? It would be white, and it would be a sort of you know what it would be? It would be like a really sweet Chablis, like just something.
Wow.
You don't mean sweet. You mean dry.
I mean, by sweet, I actually mean like awesome or sick or rad or cool.
Oh.
Going there. I don't mean
Yeah.
residual sugar in the wine. It's a dry wine.
Because Chablis is the greatest wine in the world.
Yeah, I would do it like an amazing Chablis.
Okay. My last meal would be
Melted cheese.
eating dumplings in Taipei at the original Din Tai Fung. I was in Shanghai with a good friend of mine who's also a restaurateur named Will Gadara. He was a close friend from college, and we decided to go to Shanghai together. And it was one of those days when we were like so tired and so hungry, and it's a hard city to be in as an American if you don't speak the language. It's not an easy place to be a tourist. And we found this restaurant that had this, and often when you're in Shanghai, everyone's trying to sell you something, and it's hard to know what to trust sometimes. Is that watch you're selling real or not real, right? So, and there's this bronze plaque outside this restaurant in a strip mall, and the bronze plaque says the New York Times in the mid 90s called this restaurant the top 10 restaurant in the world.
Wow.
Like, there's no way this is real. We'd never heard of it, but we were so hungry we went in, and it was like the fourth branch of Din Tai Fung, and we had this meal with just beer and xiaolongbao, which is their soup dumplings, and we must have eaten 60 or 70 easily between the two of us.
Almost became your last
And just
meal.
beer, and then we
Okay.
had sake and dumplings, and we kept repeating and repeating, and we couldn't believe that the place was empty and not more popular. And we like hopped on our phones after, and sure enough, the Taipei restaurant was named one of the 10 best restaurants in the world, and we couldn't beve that we had like discovered this thing.
You just walk
And
in.
we went back the next day
excellent.
because we had to go back, and there was a line like 1,000 people long, and we didn't realize that it was like a Chinese holiday.
Oh.
Eating, and they're like, "Oh, this place actually is famous." We talk about that meal of dumplings, sake, and beer.
You are a dumpling fan.
It's the perfect.
You keep going there in your head.
No, it's the only thing that's better than
Yeah.
pure melted cheese.
They should put that on the sign next to the New York Times.
with the fresh ginger, and then you dip it in black vinegar, which is a touch of soy,
Yeah.
and you drink the soup. The Din Tai Fung here in Seattle, it's great, and I'm a frequent guest, but it's
not the
not
same.
as good as it is over in Asia. And I just dream that the Taipei restaurant, the original, which goes back to the 70s, has to be like the greatest single restaurant in the world. That's where I want to go. And then I'll die on the sidewalk right outside after, and I'll be so happy.
You're not just gonna like face plant into a
No. And I think
Into a little dumpling.
that's disrespectful to the
dumpling.
restaurant. I need
like
to
that.
leave, get
Yeah.
to the sidewalk, and
And
then
then
die.
just-
We'll be back with more after this.
Dreaming of a long-awaited vacation? Take your travels to the next level with Alaska Airlines. They're committed to providing a higher standard of safety and cleanliness throughout your journey. From mask requirements and touch-free options to HEPA filters on board and fresh air every 2 to 3 minutes. Plus, their award-winning loyalty program, Mileage Plan, makes it easy to earn and redeem miles wherever you go, including destinations worldwide, thanks to their One World Alliance membership. If you're ready to land a low fare, next-level care, and the best experience in the air, book now at alaskaair.com.
Okay, guys, I could talk about this with you all day, but we are running out of time, so we have to bring on our second guest. So everybody, if you're listening, if you have questions for Mark and Brian, type them in the comments. We're going to do Q&A after this. But now we're going to switch gears because, like I mentioned at the beginning, once I learn the last meals of my guests, we like to talk about the history, the science, the culture. So we are going to focus in on those soup dumplings, the Xiao Long Bao from Din Tai Fung with Hsiao-Ching Chow. There was a lot of 3 words in a row right there. And Hsiao-Ching is the Seattle author of Chinese Soul Food and her new book, Vegetarian Chinese Soul Food. Beautiful books. I keep mine on my coffee table when, I want to just look at something pretty just to leaf through. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And the whole time I'm listening to Brian describe wax poetic about soup dumplings, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. I've been to all those locations. And yes, it's a fantastic parcel of deliciousness. And I know you want to get geeky about soup dumplings, and I'm ready to do that. So do you want to ask a question, or should I just launch into it?
I'll ask you a question first, just because for anyone listening who's never had Xiao Long Bao, I just want to be clear that the soup is in the dumpling. It's not a bowl of soup with dumplings in it. It is trapped inside of the dumpling wrapper. And so I want you to explain the magic. How do they get the soup in the dumpling?
Well, first it's Xiao Long Bao. Xiao is little, Long is the basket, Bao is the ball. And so that how the soup gets into the dumpling is that you get basically meat gelatin, right? Mm-hmm. Meat jello that you make with bones and pork skin and all sorts of deliciousness to get the natural collagen. Cook that down, chill it, becomes gelatin. You chop that up to go into the filling. And then when it steams, all of that melts and the soup is inside. And it is probably one of the most delightful things to eat, but also one of the most dangerous because you have this boiling hot soup inside that's straight out of the steamer, and you have to eat them hot. Yeah. So you develop Teflon tongue and just eat very carefully. But yeah, that's how you do it. And there are soup dumplings where you have soup in a separate bowl. So there is that version as well, but mostly it's soup inside the dumpling.
Can you give us an insider tip on how to know when it's the right temperature? Do you have a method for that, or because it's dangerous, right? I mean, you could go.
It is dangerous. You just as soon as it comes to the table, you start eating it, and it's almost like you're aerating a sip of wine. You aerate you suck the soup out of the dumpling and kind of aerate it as you go, and that helps to cool it down a little bit so you're not scalding your tongue. But you can't, once it cools, the wrapper just kind of shrinks in on itself, and it's just not the same textural experience. So you got to eat it while they're hot, but you learn how to eat them hot.
Well, I'm wondering if the way I was taught was the wrong way. Kind of like I was remembering the other day that when I first started eating sushi in my early 20s, we would put the pickled ginger on the roll and eat it that way. And now, I haven't done that for a long time. So I'm wondering if this is a similar faux pas. I was taught to eat the soup dumplings by taking the teeniest little bite to let the steam out and then to eat it. Do you not do that?
You have your Chinese spoon and your chopstick in the other hand. So you kind of, you scoop, using your chopsticks, you help to lift the dumpling into your soup spoon. So it's okay to reach into the basket that way. And then, some people take the small bite, let the steam escape, and then drink the soup and then eat the dumpling. Some people take a bigger bite. So it just depends on what your capabilities are. Certainly, with my kids, they have to be extra careful because they aren't quite, they're better now, but when they were younger, it's a lot more dangerous. But there's, and then whether you want to dip it in sauce or chili sauce and all of that. So you have some differences of preference.
So can we talk a little just briefly about the history? When did these come about? Where are they from? It's such an elaborate, time-consuming dish to make. I was wondering if this was for royalty.
Legend has it that it was created in Nanshan County in Shanghai. and in the 19th century. But as with any of these types of history, that's sort of debated who actually invented it. But Shanghai is the origin of these dumplings, and there's lots of traditional places in Shanghai. If you ever go there again, Brian, there are other restaurants, and in fact, if you want to look up the Shanghai Soup Dumpling Index, this guy named Christopher actually tried 52 different Shanghai xiaolongbao restaurants and then measured 4 different qualities and put it in a poster. So it's, ratio, weight of the filling ratio, all that stuff. And that's in a chart. So it originates from Shanghai. And the thing with Din Tai Fung is it was founded in Taipei, but they happened to have a chef who knew how to make xiaolongbao, and he introduced that to Taipei. Like that's kind of the history of it. And speaking of Din Tai Fung, they are, if you ever stand outside the window and you see them like making their dumplings, the wrappers weigh 5 grams, the filling weighs 16 grams, so for a total of 21 grams, and there are exactly 18 pleats. And so the chefs there train and train and train to get it exactly right every single time. Now, when I teach soup dumpling making for home cooks, I'm like, okay, we're home cooks. We're not going to be that precise. Just, make the dumpling, steam it, and you're good to go. But if you do want to get really geeky about it, you can kind of prescribe exactly how many pleats you want to do it. And the thinner the wrapper, the better it tastes, but it's really hard to get the wrapper just right. So at home, I'm a bit more forgiving with folks.
I don't know where I heard this, if I read it or heard it on a podcast, because when I went back to find it today, I couldn't. I heard a rumor that they won't hire dumpling makers who are left-handed because you have to all be in a line and it would disrupt the flow. You have to be a right-handed dumpling maker.
I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, but if you're left-handed, you can train to be a right-handed pleater. Like I don't see that as an issue, right? Like you can be ambidextrous. And if you make dumplings, and I have made many, just like pot sticker boiled dumplings, that kind of thing, many tens of thousands across my decades of being on this earth. And you have to be ambidextrous if you're pleating on both the right and the left side. So I can pleat with my left hand. I am right-handed, so I naturally can pleat with my right hand, but I can also pleat with my left hand. So if you're really good at making dumplings, you can do it all.
Okay, we have to go to Q&A in 1 minute, but I really, really want to ask you this question because I'm just intrigued because both of you, all of my guests grew up in restaurant families. Can you talk about where you learned to make dumplings, not soup dumplings, different kinds of dumplings, and how many you had to make over the years?
So typical immigrant story, came to the States. My parents were professionals in Taipei, but couldn't do what they did. So somehow they ended up in the restaurant business. And I spent, if I wasn't physically in school, I was in the restaurant. And when I was 8 years old, I started making all the wontons for our restaurant. So I did wontons. Dumplings, we didn't sell dumplings like pot stickers because it was very labor intensive and people want cheap food. They want Chinese food to be cheap. So we would make that at home, and many years of, again, I've tried to venture account, but it's hard. A lot. And in the last 5-6 years, I've been teaching pot sticker classes. And I have to say, I am the best at teaching pot stickers. I have taught many of them. I have had hundreds of students. Now with Zoom, I just did a class the other day through 90 Second Why, so with a lot more people from across the country. But yeah, teaching, so by not only growing up making dumplings, but also teaching how to make dumplings just adds another level and layer of understanding of the mechanics around dumplings. So ask me anything. AMA. AMA.
AMA Q&A. That brings us perfectly into our Q&A now. So one question you can all answer, but I'll start with Brian and Mark. People want to know, what are your thoughts on 11 Madison Park going vegan? For those who don't know, that's a very fine dining restaurant in New York City that's been called by some the best restaurant in the world. And the chef announced very recently that when they reopen, all of the food is going to be vegan. So you can't crutch on butter or cream any longer.
I think it's bold, and I think it's exciting. Our entire industry needs to move that direction.
It's the way we're all going. We don't have to go that far, but I love that they're taking that step. And not every restaurant could. It's really hard to do. So nice to be rated one of the top restaurants in the world and have sort of the ability to do it. But I love that leadership, and I love that we're moving that direction. It's just, you're going to see it all over the world, and we need to go there.
But like, that's what fine dining should be doing, is bring, like a really fancy luxury car comes out with a feature, and then 10 years later, all the cheaper cars have that same feature as standard.
Yeah.
That's what the great chefs of the world are doing. I think that's what Daniel's doing. Like, he's going to pave a way to teach and help other restaurants be able to get off their meat kicks and be more open, because when the great restaurants do it, it helps all the others be able to follow.
And with your new chef, I know that, she'll have a lot of autonomy to do what she wants to do, but do you anticipate adding a little bit more of a vegetarian flair, or Meatless Monday or something like that?
It won't be Meatless Monday. We've kind of been moving that direction for 5 or 6 years now. And I'll tell you, it's not easy to do. People come in and they have a certain mindset about what is special or what a big night out is going to look like.
Yeah, or what expensive food looks like.
Right. So, wow, I'm paying this much money for celery. It just doesn't feel as cool as your $1.50 lobster in 1950. So, but we've been moving that direction, pretty steadily for a number of years now. And that's one of the exciting things I think about Aisha, is just her ability to make a mushroom or a piece of celery taste as good as a piece of fish.
We really hope the world continues to move towards protein being the complement to the veg as the star.
Yep.
That's where we need to go for our bodies and for our environment.
Yep.
Well, Hsiao-Ching, you just did a whole new vegetarian version of your first book, so I'm sure you can relate. You hear a lot about, in other cultures where the meat is used sparingly and it is usually a lot of vegetables, but in this country, it is like slap a big steak, on the table and have a little side salad. So was the cookbook, did it come from people asking for those versions of the recipes, or just something that you wanted to do?
Actually, these are not necessarily vegetarian versions of meat-filled dishes. These are just vegetable-centric dishes and vegetable-centric cooking. And what I have to say is that, a lot of these cuisines, global cuisines, already have a huge tradition of plant-based cooking. And so, it may be that a fine dining restaurant leads the way in the developed world, but really this type of food, this type of cooking, this type of eating has been around for centuries, right? Mm-hmm. Because meat is expensive.
Yeah.
The reason a lot of stir-fry dishes are mostly vegetables is because meat is expensive, fuel is expensive. So yeah, it's more vegetable centric. So, I think, to Mark and Brian's points about having a place like EMP sort of show the way to those types of restaurants, I think there's absolutely great value in that. But I just want to speak up for cuisine in the sense that a lot of us have been eating this way for a long time, and there are a lot of chefs out there who are already doing this work. So, we have different perspectives.
Let's see. What are all of your favorite local Seattle dishes? Just to put you on the spot. We can go down the line. Whoever can think of their first thing that comes in your mind.
Rice cakes with spicy sausage at Jewel.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Jam.
That's fun.
It's my favorite thing in the world.
Yes, teriyaki.
And these aren't the kind of rice cakes that my grandma would keep in her purse smeared with peanut butter. These are the ones that are closer to chewy noodles with rice flour.
Yeah.
Yasuko teriyaki, chicken teriyaki.
Ooh, that's very Seattle classic dish.
Yeah.
Henry's Donuts on the Mukilteo Speedway.
Ooh, I always drive by that and I wonder. That's good.
Drive by without getting some. You will thank yourself. They're so good.
Okay.
It's a pleasure. We do it all the time.
Let's see what else. Okay, dishes you don't like or foods you don't like. I think a lot of people in the food world, we're not very picky, but is there something that you don't want to eat?
I don't know why uni is consumed. I think
it's so good. We have to eat it now. That's taking over the world.
The reproductive organs of this, like,
they know what it is. Yeah, you just don't like it.
It's just the worst. That's my.
I think it has place for sure.
I hate it so much.
It's like cheese of the sea.
It is really not his jam.
Oh no.
Yeah. I don't know. You're not a big fan of abalone either. That dancing one in China was kind of freaking me out.
Oh man, we had abalone. I didn't. Nearly.
You actually turned.
I nearly threw up at the table.
It was really the color just bleed from his face. It was terrifying to kind of see. But foods that we don't like.
You like everything.
Yeah, I don't know. No. Nope. Don't have
anything.
Don't like. I mean, does that connect to you at all? What do you not like, Hsiao-Ching?
I don't like raw onions.
Oh.
I'll eat them cooked, but there's something. It's just so sharp.
Even in moderation.
I don't like raw onions. You can't digest them very well, especially like big, gigantic onion rings, like on a burger or something. Or
to go big, gigantic. What about like salsa has a great application of the raw onion? Like just a little onion in salsa just helps,
Yes.
Yeah.
But when I do that, I mince the onion so fine that it's not this giant chunky piece of thing. Like I like the flavor of that in that application. But
you're not like an onion apple eater. You don't just sort of like.
Oh yeah. Apparently, I don't know. It's an Eastern Washington thing to have a peanut butter raw onion sandwich. I just learned about this a couple years ago.
That'd be hard. I think that'd be hard.
Yeah, no.
I tried the peanut butter pickled this year. That was actually really good. Have you tried it?
Good. Yeah, I haven't had one yet. Have you had one?
I have not.
It's good.
I'll be honest. It's not been a great year for us for getting out. We've been a little behind. It's weird. Yeah. Up, and you get all busybody. But I'm looking forward to that again. I'm looking forward to branching out and exploring this town in the way that we all used to.
No, but you can get that rice cake dish to go any night, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, guys, we're out of town. We're out of time. We're not out of town. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. That was Mark and Brian Canlis' last meal. Go to canlis.com to see what they're up to because they're always up to something fun. They had mentioned earlier that starting tomorrow, you can order these care packages for the people you love in your life. So canlis.com. And thanks to Hsiao-Ching Chou. Make sure and pick up one or both of her cookbooks, Chinese Soul Food and Vegetarian Chinese Soul Food. And self-promotion, if you've never listened to Your Last Meal before and you liked it, which you might if you're still here, make sure and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And you can follow along on Instagram at Hello Rachel Belle, BELLE.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thanks to Rachel, Hsiao-Ching, Mark, and Brian for the talk. And thanks also to the folks in the audience who asked questions. If you'd like to be one of those audience members for a future Crosscut event, go to crosscut.com/events. This episode of Crosscut Talks was engineered by Seth Halloran. The live recording was engineered by Resty Bacall and Victoria Ralph, and the event was produced by Jake Newman and Andrea O'Meara. Ann Krisnovich and Mo Cloud managed our audience engagement. If you'd like to subscribe to Crosscut Talks, you can do just that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. For the latest political, environmental, and culture news from the Pacific Northwest, visit crosscut.com. And if you would like to support the work that we do at Crosscut, whether it's the live events we host every month or the in-depth reporting we deliver every day, go to crosscut.com/donate. Crosscut Talks is a product of Cascade Public Media. I'm Mark Baumgarten. We'll be back soon with another conversation.